Greetings metalheads, George here from No Nonsense Metal Reviews, here today at long last to give you the full no nonsense review of the brand new full-length studio album Goliath from thrash metal legends Exodus. This is a very interesting album, to say the least, and I think it's fair to say it has been quite a divisive, quite a polarizing album. More on that in a moment. So, album number 13, Goliath, from the mighty Exodus. Exodus are thrash metal legends. They are, and I think that is fair to say, they are a thrash metal institution. They've got 12 previous albums, some a little bit more popular, should we say, or better received than others, but overall, 12 pretty strong albums, some far stronger than others. And actually, Exodus have been on a very good run, a very fine run for, well, decades now. They've been producing some of the best quality thrash in the whole scene. And certainly their last maybe 5-6 albums have been of a very high thrashing quality. So, album number 13, I guess anticipation was very high. Not only were we expecting it to follow up from some brilliant albums, some first-rate, top-class albums, like previous album Persona Non Grata from 2021, and before that we had the even better, in my opinion, Blood In, Blood Out, which came in 2014. So, anticipation is high. It's also the first album to feature a reunited lineup. We had Rob Dukes back in the fold. First album since Exhibit B, The Human Condition. So Rob is now back in the band on vocals following the departure of Steve Souza. So anticipation very high. But reviews, I actually haven't watched any other reviews, but reviews seem to be coming out very early on, first couple of days, if not the day of release. As you can tell, I like to actually wait and digest the album, give it a chance, give it a fighting chance before I try and give it a full review. So hence this being nearly 2 weeks after the release. But even very early on, reviews seem to be very mixed. I saw a whole lot of clickbait reviews coming up. This is the worst Exodus album in X amount of years. What on earth has happened? Really? I'm not sure if we're listening to the same album here, because my initial impressions were interesting. Okay, gonna have to stick with this one. Got the impression initially this was going to be one that really grew with time rather than an immediate, wow, this is a hit. This is going to absolutely blow minds. Heads are going to roll. And I think my assessment was fair. That was correct, because I've listened to this album so many times over the last couple of weeks and it has really grown on me. I think actually Goliath is a really strong album. But classic, tale as old as time. We're comparing this, or maybe people are, some listeners are, comparing this album, Goliath, to a run of very strong albums. The last two that I pointed out there, very strong albums, top class thrash. We've also got the Exhibit A and Exhibit B albums, both absolutely top quality. Then we have the fantastic Tempo of the Damned, Shovel-Headed Kill Machine. Yeah, maybe Goliath isn't better than those, but maybe Goliath is actually highlighting a bit of an issue with expectations. Are people expecting a little bit too much? Because I'm sure that there would also be a lot of complaints and grumblings if Exodus just delivered Shovelhead Part 2 or Tempo Part 2, right? So the album itself, I think, is a very strong album. I would say that maybe, although it is a thrashing album, Exodus are a thrash band and this is a thrash metal album, maybe it's also leaning in kind of traditional heavy metal and speed metal directions as well. And there are a couple of tracks that really do really do follow that kind of style a little bit more. So here's our lineup in kind of zombie looking format. Gary Holt, one of the best guitarists in thrash. Rob Dukes on vocals. I think Rob does a fine performance here. I think he almost sounds a little bit clearer, a little bit more audible than the kind of vicious snarl of some of his other earlier Exodus albums. Lee Altus on guitars, absolutely fantastic guitarist, a top-notch player. Jack Gibson on bass, love Jack's bass sound throughout this whole album. It's constant, it's rattling, it really does give you that little extra kind of hook to headbang along to. And Tom Hunting on drums, absolute machine. Guy kills it here. So the lineup is very strong. No sloppy musicianship here at all. And the album actually kicks off with a brilliant track, 3111. And that is a really good opening track. It feels almost like an intro. It's like an introduction to the album. Some very crunchy guitar work. Great to hear Rob, really delivering some strong vocals. As I say, he sounds a little bit kind of more clear. I don't know. There's a distinct difference there. A maturity, perhaps. I don't know. Comes with age, but he sounds good. And that's the important thing. I think even I, a fan of Rob Duke's vocals, I was a little bit kind of skeptical maybe. Was he going to be able to step back into the band and top Steve's vocals? Steve, very good vocalist. He's got that real kind of Brian Johnson kind of vocal style. He's got a bit of a rattle to him. He's got power in there as well. A little bit of a Bon Scott tribute. But nonetheless, all doubts were quashed with just that opening track. We then get, it's got some great crunchy thrashing riffs, no doubt. It really gets you building, gets you ready for what's up next, which is Hostis Humani Generis. And that is a very strong thrashing Exodus number. Headbang worthy, great drumming, machine gun style, good vocals, killer riffs. It's all about the riffs. Good rumbly, rattly bass throughout. No doubts at all. It, in my mind, very, very strong Exodus track. The Changing Me, an interesting one, as we have contribution from none other than Peter Tagtgren, also known for being a producer, also being frontman of the legendary Hypocrisy and Pain, and has been in Bloodbath and numerous other things. That's a bit of an interesting track. Does sound a little bit different. It's less of an Exodus thrashing, ripping track, but it's very strong. It's got kind of a little bit of something else to it. It's a little bit more technical. I wouldn't quite go as far as to say proggy, but it's a bit different. It has got more kind of ambitious heavy metal textures to it. And I really like it. I think it's great. Things pick up a bit with another rager, I think it's fair to say. Promise You This. It's fast. It's thrashy. Again, more solid riffs, more blinding guitar work, and more attitude. I think it has got a little bit of a kind of, I guess, punky attitude to it as well, but it's good stuff. No issues there. Goliath, the title track, a delightful, evil, menacing, rumbling bass intro, and it sounds like a stomping Goliath. It sounds like a monster, and it's a freaking great intro. Such a good way to build. The anticipation is rising, right? And it does not disappoint. We get some very interesting key, or strings, I should say, courtesy of Katie Jacoby. Not familiar with Katie's other work, but adds a different kind of texture. And there's a bit of a playoff between the strings and guitar work as well. Really good though. It's more of a mid-paced, menacing, moody track. But it's got the riffs, it's got the crunch, nothing nothing to disappoint there, in my opinion. Yeah, it might not be an absolute neck-busting speed fest, but doesn't always need to be blinding speed to be killer thrash. Beyond the event horizon, probably one of the album highlights. That is a much faster ripping, thrashing track. Easy to headbang along to. You kind of, air drumming away while you're listening to it. I certainly am. Anyway, really like that one. Again, really strong guitar work, vocal work, and the drumming is killer. 2 minutes hate keeps that kind of speed and momentum as well, as does Violence Works. And again, there's these kind of more traditional heavy metal little flares thrown in there as well. But it's just great. They really keep up the pace and keep up the momentum with those tracks. Summon of the God Unknown, a longer track. I think overall that's another quite notable difference. Whereas certainly on the human condition and the atrocity exhibition, quite long tracks. You get some really lengthy tracks there. The longest track is Summon, and that is sort of getting on towards 8 minutes. So generally shorter tracks, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I like the long Exodus tracks where it's just kind of 10 minutes of just intense thrashing, crunchy riff. I could have that all day. But I do think it's good to have a little bit of a dynamic difference in terms of song length, duration being a little bit shorter. And that's a really good number. Again, we've got more of those kind of traditional, dare I say, like Priest-esque traditional heavy metal moments in there. Don't know why that comes to mind, but there's just little vibes in there of older school metal. No bad thing. That's still, by and large, a thrash track. Again, no disappointment with the guitar work there, or the drumming, or the vocals. Again, Rob is doing a good job here. Closing track is a much more energetic, thrashing, speed metal kind of track. It's not an absolute face-melting riff fest. It's not a Damage Incorporated or Dyer's Eve grand finale where you're just thrashed into a pulp at the end of the album. What we get here is a track that's full of energy, it's full of attitude, it's thrashing, but it's got that kind of speed heavy metal energy to it, and it works. Again, we get some fantastic guitar work there. We get some really tasty solos and leads just scattered throughout the whole album, but it works. It really does work. And I would say overall, this is 10 tracks, clocking in about the 50-minute mark, which is still quite a good album length, a little bit shorter than some of Exodus's other albums. But it's a strong Exodus album. The album is produced by the band as well, and alongside a few other faces and names. We've got Mark Lewis mastering and mixing, engineered by Juan Ortega. So they've done a fine job. The album sounds really good. No complaints regarding the production at all. It sounds solid. And I think that is also quite an important point, because these last couple of albums have sounded very tasty indeed. Very, very fine albums. So, I don't quite get the hate. I'm not quite picking up on the this is a disappointment vibe. I think maybe, as I mentioned earlier on in the review, maybe there is a bit of an unrealistic expectation that Exodus at this stage in their career, they've been around for 40 plus years, they're not going to suddenly drop Bonded by Blood Part 2. They've already done that. So they're not going to do that. They're also not going to give you Fabulous Disaster or Pleasures of the Flesh Part 2. They have produced some cracking albums, newer albums and older albums. And if that's what you want to hear, you'll always be able to revisit them. They're not going anywhere. But I think what Exodus have done here is they have remained current. They have moved on in terms of keeping with the times. They have diversified, kept things interesting. And let's face it, that is the way that bands have to do things in order to survive. You keep making the same album again and again and again, you lose fans because it's boring. You've got to mix it up, but stay true to your formula. And I think any Exodus fan would really struggle to pick up Goliath and say this doesn't sound like Exodus. It sure as hell does. So take a look at some of these other cracking thrash metal albums that we've had out from some of the bigger names so far, 2026 and also in 2025. Bands like Sodom, Creator, Destruction, Megadeth, Testament. They're all kind of keeping current by diversifying a bit. So take it for what it is. If you've been put off checking out Goliath because of some of the mixed reviews, I'm not trying to convince anyone here, but I would say give it a chance. Formulate your own conclusion. Listen to the album, maybe a couple of times, and draw your own conclusions. Let your own feelings come forward. So, my friends, Goliath, album number 13 from Exodus. I'm really enjoying it. I'm saying at this time, listened to it a lot of times, I personally feel it's around a 7.5, maybe an 8, if I was going to be really picky. I think that there are some standout tracks here. Second track in particular, Hostis Humani Generis, is a brilliant track. Absolutely check that one out. Goliath, the title track, and Beyond the Event Horizon. For me, those are the real standouts there. But as you can see, you've got 10 fab tracks to choose from. So, my friends, what are your thoughts and opinions on Goliath? You love it? You hate it? You're sitting somewhere in the middle? Feel free to let me know your thoughts on this one. If you haven't checked it out, go and check it out and let me know what you think. Of course, let's keep this all PG. We're all friends of the same music scene, so let's keep this civilized. Until next time, my friends, do take care of yourselves. Listen to the mighty Exodus. Of course, feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. All the support is greatly appreciated. But above all, stay freaking heavy, my friends.